This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the U.S. and beyond. Throughout these spring months, we've had the privilege of conversing with remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. In this week's episode, we're heading to the Southwest to talk to an amazing guest. Her name is Monica, and you can follow her travel and outdoor adventures on Instagram at Hikes with Monica, with periods in between each word. Monica shares with us some of her amazing outdoor experiences across the Southwest, from a wildlife refuge that's a hidden gem in Oklahoma, kayaking to Antelope Canyon, and visiting the Channel Islands National Park off the coast of California. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Monica. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm really excited to talk to today's guest. Her name is Monica, and she's going to be talking with us about all her amazing travel and hiking experiences across the Southwest and the United States. Monica, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. For listeners that haven't had a chance to follow you on social media, can you share a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Sure. I am Monica, and I live in the Southwest region of the United States. My main stomping ground is the area between Oklahoma and Arizona. I work in finance, so I'm a pretty detailed person, which helps in trip planning because I do a lot of research about where I want to go and the best way to afford it. But I also love the spontaneity of traveling. Sometimes you just need to find out where that old dirt road goes, And hiking is what I do most, but I loved off-road and kayak too. My dad built a travel van recently, so that inspired me to try a little camping of my own, especially at the national parks. I still prefer hotels, but there's just something special about unplugging and just going to sleep with the stars. And then you're fumbling your way in the middle of the night at some campsite trying to find the bathroom. But when I'm not traveling, I'm at the gym most every day. Fitness is a huge thing for me, and it definitely helps me out on the trail. I've been to 16 national parks now, and I've challenged myself to find somewhere new to visit each year.
Going through your Instagram feed, I definitely added a ton of new places that I've either kind of heard about or never heard about, especially some of the national forests that you've been able to share. How would you say that you got started hiking, and how long have you been doing it for?
I've always been interested in traveling since I was young. I grew up with my dad in Kansas, and we would take long road trips everywhere. Florida, California, Mexico, Canada. So I give him a lot of credit for my passion of travel. When I go rolling by a semi truck at night and hear that soft roar, I still think of my dad and our trips. I remember staring at the stars from the back window, looking for the Big Dipper, and it would be just us and the truckers out there. So I have a lot of really good memories of that. I really started serious hikes maybe 7 years ago. I came to a point in my life where I had more time and funds to do more. My friend Michael was visiting all sorts of cool places like Horseshoe Bend and Zion, or backpacking in Peru. So he really inspired me to get out to places like Page, Arizona, and Utah.
I'm glad you mentioned the Big Dipper because at least for me growing up, that was the one thing that I could always try to find in the night sky, and
Yeah.
it was always a treat to be able to find it, especially on road trips or camping, to see that, and then you kind
Yeah.
of have a general idea of where the other stars might be.
Right.
You know, being from the Southwest, I think a lot of people instantly think of the desert, but it has so much more to offer, from beautiful national forests to high deserts. How would you describe the hiking scene in and around your local trails?
I live in a suburban area, but a lot of people here are drawn to places in Oklahoma, like Beaver's Bend State Park or the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge. I have friends who like to off road down in the Kiamichi Mountains, which is southeast Oklahoma, or out in Little Sahara State Park, which is a bunch of sand dunes in this desert atmosphere near the panhandle of Oklahoma. But my favorite is the Wichita Mountains.
Yeah, and that's one place that really caught my attention going through your feed because it is such a beautiful landscape and the wildlife that's there. There's even bison. Can you share a little
Mhm.
bit about some of those experiences that you had at this hidden gem?
The Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge is near Lawton, Oklahoma, and it's a great place to hike, camp, kayak, fish. It is a refuge for quite a bit of wildlife. You'll find herds of bison. I always like the saying, don't pet the fluffy cows. They look pretty chill, but you don't want to mess with them. They are pretty easy to find out there, and it's so cute when they have little babies with them. There are a lot of longhorn too, and sometimes I find elk at dusk. They have a pretty big community of prairie dogs too, and it's fun to stop and watch them pop in and out of their little dirt holes. The refuge is actually where I started to spend a lot of time before making big hiking trips. The park is definitely big enough for a day, and you can make it as challenging as you want. The big attraction is Mount Scott, which is about 2,400 foot high. It's a mini mountain, but it looks pretty cool. You can drive to the top and just enjoy the view, or you can walk or bike. The mountain has a bunch of boulders all around it and at the top, so it's kind of like being a kid at a playground. You can climb all over it. And this is actually my favorite sunset spot, maybe anywhere really. There are two specific trees that I love there. One is shaped like a hook, and the other looks like my interpretation of a tree of life. It has all these twisted branches and bundles of green leaves and a little rock that you can just hide yourself inside. I've seen a lot of spectacular sunsets there with layers of hills and mountains just lit up with beautiful colors. And my other favorite trail there is the Narrows. It's pretty far down into the park, and the trail is a bit hidden in the trees. You walk through some wooded area, and sometimes the path is narrow with really tall yellow grass on each side. Then you reach a rock area with some cliff views of the water below, and you can hike down to the water, and it has that babbling brook sound that's really peaceful. And you can cross the creek on some rocks, and then you ascend to another area for some great views. Sometimes you can catch people rock climbing out there. It does get pretty hot in the Oklahoma summer, but I've hiked this all times of year. And then if you're in the area, you should make a stop at Mears Restaurant and enjoy one of the best burgers and peach cobbler in the state. And there's also a tiny town called Medicine Park with some personality and this wooden bridge that you can drive across, and you can walk around or shop and eat. And the Plantation Restaurant has some really good chicken fried steak, and the kids can float around in the creek across the street. It's a great place to stop when you visit the refuge. It's a really great just day of fun there.
No, that sounds amazing. And you know, a lot of us hikers are definitely motivated sometimes by that post-hike meal, and being able to hide those hidden gems nearby is always a plus. Now, Monica, how far would you say of a drive would it be from Oklahoma City to the Wichita Mountain Refuge?
Yeah, from Oklahoma City, it's about an hour and a half. It's not a
Oh,
long
that's
drive at
short.
all. Yeah, it's a pretty quick drive out there, really. You can definitely make a day trip out of it for sure.
Now, Monica, you know, where seeing spring come alive across the United States. But one of the highlights for me from your feed is some of the beautiful captures that you've had of the Southwest desert covered in snow or just a dusting of snow. How was your winter hiking season this last year?
Well, I'll tell you, I saw snow in a lot of places this last winter season, but I think that Bryce Canyon in Utah was my favorite. I was in the area and big fat snowflakes were coming down, so I had to check it out. The park was just blanketed in snow. And I took a shot of this little tree standing tall in a big drift of snow with the mountains in the background. And it was such a magical moment. All the hoodoos were just draped in snow too. It was definitely a little winter wonderland. And I also love the Ozarks in the early winter. The trees are all bare and the air is crisp. It's usually not unbearably cold, but you get to bundle up a bit. And I love the crunching sound of walking through all the dead leaves on the ground. That's a fun place for me to go in the winter.
Now, you've been able to share some other hidden gems in the Southwest, and I feel like Texas, especially their hiking scene, is really starting to grow. And you're hearing about all these amazing places that Texas has to offer. And the one place that caught my attention from your feed was a place called the Lighthouse Rock in Palo Duro Canyon. Can you share a little bit about that incredible place and your experiences hiking there?
Palo Duro Canyon State Park is like the Grand Canyon of Texas. It's out in the Panhandle near Amarillo. There's about 30 trails out there, but I don't think any can beat the Lighthouse Trail. It's about 6 miles out and back, and it's a pretty easy trail. It can just get really hot out there. The lighthouse is this big red rock pillar that sits on this long rock slab that you can walk across, and it's surrounded by beautiful, colorful cliffs. It's quite a sight. And there's also a fun little cave out there, almost like a slot that you can go into and climb the rocks on the outside. It's kind of a fun spot for kids as well. And when you leave the park and hit I-40 again, there is the Cadillac Ranch in Amarillo that has cars sticking up out of the ground, and they encourage you to bring your own spray paint and give the cars a little artwork of your own. So that's a fun stop in the area as well. And the Big Texan restaurant, which is known for the 72-ounce steak challenge. So you can get a little post-hike protein while you're there.
Oh, how far would you say Cadillac Ranch is from the Lighthouse Rock?
I want to say it's about 30 minutes from Amarillo, maybe, to Palo Duro. So maybe 45 minutes from Palo Duro.
Super close.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't have to really get too far off the highway or the freeway to make it out there.
It's right off the freeway.
Yeah, I've heard of that restaurant with the 72-ounce steak challenge. And
Yeah.
I like protein, but that might be a little bit too much.
Right.
Split it amongst the group, maybe. Now, Monica, you've shared some really great experiences already in the Southwest, including Utah, but you've been to Arizona, New Mexico. What are some of your favorite Southwestern states that you like to visit?
If I had a long weekend, I would head out to Red River, New Mexico, and pull or rent a side-by-side and take the Goose Lake Trail. It's about 14 miles out and back and about a 3,000-foot elevation gain. You get across some water before you head up the mountain from the valley, and it's this really narrow 2-track road with some tight turns and rough terrain, which adds to the excitement because you come back down the same way you came. So somebody's backing up in traffic. There's not much room. And when you reach the lake, you can hike all around it. It's a really spectacular view. You can see so far, and you can hike further up where the bighorn sheep hang out. And the reflection on the lake is super cool because it's like this big sheet of glass. I think it's been my favorite off-road adventure. Red River is just surrounded by nature from the moment you walk outside your cabin. There is a hiking trail and beautiful bridge along the river, and little deer just hang out. The wildflowers can really pop out there, and there's so many trees. I love it. And another weekend trip would be Santa Fe, New Mexico, to the Santa Fe National Forest. One of my favorite hikes has been Nambe Lake. It's in the Sangre de Cristo subrange, and you begin around 10,000 feet at the Santa Fe Ski Basin parking lot. It's about 6 miles out and back with a 2,000-foot elevation gain, so it's a good, hardworking trail. It has aspens and pine trees, and it's pretty shaded, but you are gonna feel that last mile uphill. It's steep, and it runs along this beautiful little creek. And then you'll finally reach that alpine lake, and it feels like you're nearly in the clouds. It's a pretty amazing view. But hands down, my favorite hiking state is Arizona. I absolutely love Sedona, anything and everything there. Page, Arizona is super desert-like, but I love just hiking through the Glen Canyon National Recreational Area, especially for a sunrise. You can climb up on one of those big rocks and watch the sun come up and light up the rocks all around Lake Powell. Kayaking through Antelope Canyon was really incredible too. The water was like glass, and you're just drifting through these huge canyon walls, and then you can hike the slots at the end.
I was going to
I
ask
think,
you about that because
yeah.
it looked like you did some kayaking, and I've heard that there's two entrances. There's the entrance where you can do the guided tours, but if you have a kayak, you can go on the other entrance, and you kind of start off through the slot canyon, but it's on the other side of what most of the tour guides take you. Is that right?
Right. They're kind of two separate spots. You can hike into Antelope Canyon and see all those incredible rock formations, but you can also start out at Lake Powell and you can kayak in to the canyon, and
Wow.
it's a separate feature, and you kind of just drift through those canyon walls. It's a no wake zone, so it's a really relaxing ride through there. And then when you get to the beach at the end of the canyon, the slots begin, and you can beach your kayak and just hike through those slots. It's super cool.
Yeah, that's a way to start a hike.
I think my most memorable hike in Arizona was the Flatiron in the Superstition Mountains near Phoenix. You hike out from the Lost Dutchman State Park. It's about 5.5 miles and 2,600-foot elevation gain. I got off trail at least one time amidst all these rocks to scramble, so I had to find my way back. But when I took that last step to the top, it was like, wow, I did this. It was an insane view, and the wildflowers were out and blooming. It was one of my hottest, toughest climbs, I'm not going to lie. And then you have to give the Tonto National Forest out in Arizona some major love. I'm a big fan of Butcher Jones. What an incredible place. The lake is so beautiful from the trail. I got to see the wild horses, and the wildflowers are crazy. Not to mention, I love to see all of the big tall cactus. I love this photo I have of me wrapping my arms around one of them, acting like I'm giving it a big hug. You know, he was just a big prickly guy in need of a friend, you know.
I'm
But,
glad
yeah.
you mentioned Flatiron because that one, when I lived in southern Arizona, I attempted it once, but we ended up getting some rain right before you really start scrambling. And that rock face is so slick with the rain. It was starting to get a little treacherous. But what I hear
Yeah,
is
and
the view from the top is just unbelievable. It's so worth the scramble. Now, Monica, one other place that you've been able to go to, and I feel like it's growing in popularity because the wave is becoming so hard to get a permit for, and that's White Pocket. And you shared some incredible pictures from your visit to White Pocket, and people should know that, you know, you need a good 4x4 vehicle to make it out there. Definitely have a way to be able to dig yourself out of the sand. But how was your experience visiting White Pocket?
White Pocket is a very unique place. A lot of people compare it to what you would expect walking on Mars. The trek begins not too far from Kanab, Utah, and leads you to a small pocket of sorts because it's very different to its surroundings. And it's in a very remote part of Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. I hired a guide to drive me out there, which is also recommended by the BLM. You need a four-wheel drive, and there are long stretches of deep, soft sand, so it's not a place you want to get stuck. But White Pocket is a good alternative to the wave. It has a group of swirling, multicolored rock formations of Navajo sandstone, and you can climb all over them. There were maybe 5 people out there the day I went, so we had the area nearly to ourselves. The view is insane because you also have a backdrop of the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. So you have all these beautiful contrasts of colors surrounding you.
I think they call it the strip up there in Arizona. That section of northern Arizona is just so fascinating with the rock formations and then the north rim of the Grand Canyon, Vermilion Cliffs. It's just a very unique place, including Paige. Now, on Instagram, your bio states, Monica, you love hiking, sunsets, and fitness. And we talked a little bit about all three of them. But I got to say, the sunset pictures that you've been able to take across the country have been absolutely incredible. Some of my favorite ones are from the Wichita Mountain National Refuge. How did you kind of fall in love with sunsets? And what have been some of your more memorable sunset locations?
I'm a pretty passionate person, so sunsets can be quite emotional for me, a bit soulful. It's just these incredible colors illuminating the sky, and the only thing going through my mind is how beautiful is this to be right here, right now, this whole state of mindfulness. And then the night falls and 100 of stars just fill up the sky, and you get a sense of how big this world is, yet how intricate it is as well. It's quite an amazing experience, really. I'll just never stop chasing them. My most memorable is definitely Mount Scott in Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge in Oklahoma. I mentioned I have 2 trees I absolutely love there, and you can get varying sunsets out there. And that is definitely my favorite spot. I think my other favorite spot is Sun Mountain Trail in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I think because it's not a super long hike, it's like 1.5 miles out and back. And so you can hop up there at dark, and see the whole city. And then you see all the little night lights, pop up across the sky with it. It's a pretty amazing view out there as well.
One thing you've mentioned is your dad's building a travel vehicle that you'll be able to do some car camping. And I feel like the Southwest is just made for those car camping adventures because you can just pull up to some magical place and either catch the sunrise or catch the sunset. Have you been able to do that in the last year and kind of venture out and find a spot to catch either the sunset or sunrise while you car camp?
Yes, every time. That's the most important, actually, part of my camping itinerary is where am I going to be for the sunset? And I was just in Big Bend last weekend in Texas and in the Chisos Mountains, and they have this peak that's, is such a perfect sunset view when you're coming into the campground there. I loved seeing that when I would come in at night. And then for sunrises, yes, I absolutely love waking up. First of all, when you wake up and you see all the stars across the sky, it's just incredible. And then the sun starts to come up. And if you have a pretty little campsite, it's pretty amazing to see it come up across those mountains. But I think my favorite sunrise spot has to be Glen Canyon National Recreational Area up there in Page, Arizona. But back to the car camping, that is a special thing because you're already out there. So it's an easier thing to kind of catch wherever you are.
Yeah, as opposed to being in a hotel, having to wake up a little early, drive out to a place to catch it. You literally could just wake up, open the trunk or door, and catch the sunrise or sunset.
Right.
Now, Monica, one segment that we do regularly here on the podcast is doing a deep dive into our guests' Instagram and asking them about a picture or a post that captured our attention. And you already kind of mentioned and talked about it a little bit, but hiking in the Ozarks. I think you're one of our first guests that have mentioned the Ozarks. And I think a lot of people, if they have Netflix, they knew about the show, the Ozarks. But from what I hear, it's just a beautiful outdoor recreation destination that you can do it year round. Can you share a little bit about your experiences hiking and exploring the Ozarks?
The Ozarks for me is more about peace and relaxation. I've gone there every year since I was a kid, but it's more of the old school exploring the woods and playing in the creeks looking for crawdads kind of place for me. It's a slower kind of trip where you take in the beauty of the farmlands and old barns, a bit like Tennessee. I like to stay down by Table Rock Lake near Branson. and get a condo with a lake view, kind of a little home away from home feel. You just wake up to the silence of a quiet lake and wooded areas around you. There's always little deer roaming around. There is one place that I would like to hike in the Ozark National Forest. It's called Hawksbill Crag or Whitaker Point. You can find photos of hikers standing out on this rocky viewpoint. It looks a bit like a hawksbill, and it juts out over the bluff line. It overlooks a valley of trees and rolling hills. And I don't normally have an all-wheel drive vehicle when I'm out there that way. And you probably want one just to get to the trailhead. It's a bit tricky with a rough road out there, but I definitely want to hike that one day. There are some easy scenic hikes by Table Rock, but I like to find trails around the lake and explore a bit on my own. I actually prefer hiking in the late fall when the trees are bare and the cold air. I've kayaked in one of the coves down there and also rented boats and jet skis at the marina. It's a beautiful lake. Table Rock Lake is also right by Branson, Missouri. So if you need entertainment, it's like a family-friendly mini Las Vegas. Lots of shows and restaurants on the main strip. And interestingly, Silver Dollar City, which is Branson's big amusement park, evolved around the entrance of Marvel Cave. It's a pretty breathtaking visit about 500 feet below the ground if you're into caves. And Dogwood Canyon isn't far from Branson. It has this real Ozark vibe with wooden buildings, waterfalls, and a big water wheel. It's a really beautiful park with easy trail walking. There are some wildlife tours you can take by tram to see the bison, elk, and longhorn. Also some biking trails, horseback riding, fishing. It's definitely a little gym out there. And Eureka Springs is nearby as well. It's an old town with some antiques and bed and breakfasts, and it's a pretty peaceful wooded area as well. I like the rock formations in the area. You could find some at Pivot Rock in Eureka Springs. And honestly, not far from the Ozarks are the Ouachita Mountains in Oklahoma. Oklahoma has Beavers Bend State Park, and it's by Broken Bow Lake and the Mountain Fork River. It's located at the foothills of the Kiamichi Mountains and the Ouachita National Forest. It's a pretty popular place for hiking, biking, boating. There's some beautiful luxury cabins you can rent out there, which are pretty popular, or you can stay at a campsite or the lodge. You can find a lot of hiking trails through the trees or by the lake. It's a really peaceful place to be as well. Last fall, I drove by a shack renting out canoes, so I stopped. And they shuttled us down the road a ways to a shoreline of a small part of the Mountain Fork River that we could just float in a canoe back around to the shack. There was just one tiny little rapid and then calm, smooth water. We just floated along between the trees, and there was this grove of old bald cypress trees just growing up out of the water. I bet it looks really cool on a foggy morning. So I have to remind myself that sometimes being spontaneous pays off. It was a pretty fun little adventure.
Yeah, how long would you say the float?
The float, it was pretty short, actually. I wanted to say maybe an hour. There are floats you can do for longer in different parts of Oklahoma, but this one was a pretty short, just little float, maybe an hour.
That's a pretty good time if you just want to get in a little extra spontaneous adventure in, and you don't have to spend half a day. You can just, do it in an hour.
Yeah.
It's a really great gem. I'll have to add that to my list.
And this area by Beavers Bend is actually amazing for fall foliage. It's not far from the Talamina Scenic Byway, which is a really popular drive once those fall colors hit. You have views of the Ouachita Mountains, and there's lots of winding roads full of red and golden colored trees. It begins in Tallahena, Oklahoma, and it ends in Mena, Arkansas, hence the name the Talamina Scenic Byway.
And when would you say is maybe your typical peak fall foliage?
The peak season seems to be late October or early November. They have a Facebook page for the Talamina Scenic Byway that will give you alerts of when the colors are beginning to pop because everybody's looking for it. It's a pretty popular drive.
Many of us were getting out there to enjoy the spring, and with the Southwest, I feel like it's always a few weeks ahead of us because you guys tend to warm up a little bit faster than up here in the Pacific Northwest. But I've been seeing all across Instagram, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, Texas, already in like peak wildflower season. Did you get a
Hmm.
chance to get out there and enjoy the wildflowers this spring?
I did see some wildflowers out in Big Bend by Texas last weekend. So that was really pretty. I want to visit Colorado, which probably won't be till May, but that will probably be a good time still to see the wildflowers. But I don't have anything currently planned other than I have plans for Colorado in May. So I'm hoping that the wildflowers will really be popping then.
Oh, for sure. I think Colorado, kind of like our Cascade Range, they tend to be a little bit later in the season.
Yeah.
Now, outside of the Southwest, you've been able to explore the West Coast too, including California. What have been your experiences visiting the West Coast?
My trip to California last year was a bit of a wild whirlwind. I had camped the north rim of the Grand Canyon and then trekked over to Lake Tahoe. I took a kayak tour with Tahoe Jacks and I felt like I was in Caribbean water. It was so clear, but it was crazy packed with people, you know. I hiked around Tahoe and just wrapped my arms around those huge trees. I don't have trees like that where I'm from. And after Tahoe, I headed down towards Yosemite, where I got to camp inside the park. It was such a quiet little campsite with a creek and mountains all around. My favorite hike was up to Vernal Fall. It was majestic, breathtaking, just this incredible force of nature. I'm not a big waterfall chaser, but that was beyond amazing. After Yosemite, I went to the Channel Islands National Park. I'm really attracted to ocean shoreline with the rocky bluffs. I took the ferry out to Santa Cruz Island and it was like 70 degrees outside, so it was a perfect day to hike. I got a good sweat hiking to those bluffs though, and then I got sunburned and had this awkward tan line from my calf down to my ankles because of my leggings, and it lasted the rest of the summer. But it
Oh,
was so worth it looking down from the cliffs at that water. The cove was this beautiful emerald color and the ocean water was just so blue. Sometimes I'm at a loss of words for how beautiful it can be when you reach your destination and the view is just out of this world. I have a lot of respect for nature. But yeah, I got to visit LA and Hollywood while I was out there and Griffith Park and eat some good food and shop. So it was a really great trip.
oh, that sounds like an amazing trip. And yeah, I think you
Yeah, it
have
was.
this wonderful picture of you up above that cove in the Channel Islands. And
Yeah.
it's just the Channel Islands are definitely on my bucket list for the next year or two to make it out there because it's such a unique national park compared
Yeah.
to some of the other ones California has to offer. Now, Monica, we're getting towards the tail end of the regular questions. And one thing that I always like to ask our guest is when it comes to either summits or maybe the end of the hike, a lot of hikers have a regular summit routine or an end of the hike routine. For many of us, it's packing a favorite snack or drink to enjoy on the trail, or maybe just a moment of zen. And then for others, it's looking forward to that good meal afterwards. Do you have a regular custom or routine that you do when you reach your destination or when you make it back out?
The only routine I have is generally pre-planned, and that is for some serious Mexican food post-hike. I need some chicken enchiladas, some salty tortilla chips, and my own bowl of salsa.
I love it.
Yeah, every time.
Now, when it comes to your pack list, Monica, is there any luxury item that kind of falls outside of the essentials list that you tend to pack on most of your trip?
I have a snack bag and I like to bring along the small containers of Chick-fil-A sauce. You just never know when that national park French fry just needs a little extra love. So that's probably my luxury.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because there is sometimes, especially at national parks, where I'm looking for either some sort of hot sauce or any type of sauce.
Yeah.
You know, we're still at the very beginning of 2024. What do you have planned for hiking or travel goals for the rest of the year?
This summer, I have camping reservations at the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. So I will add 2 more national parks to my camping list. I just can't wait to hike and kayak, and I'm hoping to see some bears. And I also have plans for Colorado, Arizona, and Utah. You know, I'm friends with Gallivanting with Grant, and he highlights tiny house blocks in his neck of the woods. So I found this super cool tiny home I reserved out in Hurricane, Utah for late fall. I've never stayed in one before. And I follow another gal on Instagram that has given me some really good hiking trail info for the hurricane area that I actually tried to hike last visit, but it was just way too hot. So I'm pretty excited to be there again and try those hikes.
That was it for the regular questions, Monica. This last section of the podcast is the this or that questions. I'm going to give you 2 hiking related topics, and you just pick one that you prefer out of the 2.
Okay.
So the first one is, do you prefer a trail with a steep incline or a steep decline?
Steep incline. I think that's easier than coming back down. On the decline, I'd prefer actually to just jog. So I'm going to go steep incline.
And this one's a tough one, but waterfalls or summits?
Summits. I'm not a huge waterfall chaser. I certainly appreciate the forceful nature of a waterfall. I think they're quite beautiful. And sometimes they're very simplistic and very peaceful. And I can appreciate that too, but I love the summit.
And then this is the trail system question. Do you prefer a trail with switchbacks or would you rather go just straight up?
Let's just go straight up. Those switchbacks kill me. They're like never ending. They just go on and on.
Now, when you are hiking, do you use trek poles or do you prefer to be freehand?
Just freehand.
And then when it comes to your footwear, Monica, do you wear hiking boots or do you prefer trail running?
I always wear hiking boots. I have my favorite pair of Columbias, and those are kind of my go-to right now.
And then this is another trail system question. Do you prefer a trail that's a loop trail or an out and back trail?
I like out and back. And a lot of the reason is because when you're going out, you are looking off in the distance at one particular view, and you don't even realize sometimes what's behind you. So when you're coming back, you're coming the same way, but yet it's a completely different view because you're now looking the opposite way. And I find all sorts of things that I didn't even realize that I could be looking at.
This one's one of the newer ones, Monica, for this season. But when it comes to carrying your water supply, do you prefer just carrying a regular water bottle or do you prefer a Camelback or water reservoir?
I'm a water bottle person. And honestly, I choose to really stay well hydrated before the hike. So I don't like to drink a whole lot of water during it. I drink a lot before and after. So I don't carry a whole lot of water unless I'm somewhere that's really warm. Like in Phoenix, Arizona, I think you need a couple gallons of water.
Especially during those summer months. Now, this one gets hard, but I think I might know the answer, but I might be surprised. But sunset hikes or sunrise hikes?
It's funny you say it like that because I have a little hard time with that. I absolutely love sunset hikes, but there's something about that morning sunrise hike. You get up early. A lot of times when you do that, you beat the crowds. So I do a lot of sunrise hikes, but I like shorter sunset hikes. So that's why I like the Sunset Mountain in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's a shorter hike because I want to stay till the grand finale. So I don't want to have to trek back really far in the dark. So maybe sunrise. I might surprise you there.
Yeah, definitely. I thought you were going to go sunset, but... And here's another hard one. Spring flowers or fall colors?
That is a hard one because fall colors are amazing, but I'm going to go with spring flowers. I love the wildflowers, especially in Arizona and Colorado and all the different colors. So yeah, spring flowers.
And then the last one is, do you prefer a long and gradual hike or a short and steep hike?
This is a hard one too, but I'm going to go short and steep. I prefer to kind of let's just get there. Let's just get there. Let's get to the top. And I don't mind the incline so much. It actually makes me appreciate getting there more so because of the hard work I had to put into it. So I do appreciate a long gradual hike at some, I do appreciate those as well.
Well, that was it for the this or that questions, Monica. For folks that are listening that haven't had a chance to follow your adventures on social media, what are some of the places they can follow you at?
Instagram is pretty much my only platform I use to share my journeys. So Hike with Monica is the best place you're going to find me.
Really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me come on here today. It's been exciting to talk about my journeys. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Monica. We extend our heartfelt thanks to her for coming on the podcast. Make sure to stay connected and follow her upcoming adventures on Instagram at Hike with Monica, with periods in between each word. And don't forget to check out the episode show notes for more. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the spring months, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on those thrilling tales, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mikes. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsockswithaz.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.